Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
And as we continue our conversations, I want to have you all ask questions. So please do put them in our chat, and we'll try our best to answer as many of them as we can. So let's talk about the obvious question first, David. What is meditation, and why is it so important?
Yeah, great question. Well, meditation really is just an English word. It's described as any practice involving the self-regulation of attention. It can be used for spiritual purposes or for philosophical understanding of the mind. I'll just add that from the Indo-Tibetan traditions, meditation became the translation for the Sanskrit dhyana and bhavana, which really refer to mental development or just cultivating familiarity with one's mind.
Well, thank you. I mean, I love our Sanskrit tones, and I'm always so happy to have them um, accessible to everybody. And I want to move to the very important topic here because we have leaders with us. And Rebecca, I'd like you to shed light on this. What really is mindful leadership?
Yeah, I really view mindful leadership as embodying the qualities of mindfulness. So, embodying being able to focus and notice how you're feeling, like we just did, checking in with yourself, and bringing an element of curiosity, and most importantly, bringing some kindness. And the more that we could practice being kind to ourselves, that helps us be kinder to others as well. And most of all, I think it's really about being human, not about trying to be perfect, but about being human.
Well, thank you. That's important because with leaders, we often try to be perfect because we feel that everybody's watching us, and I think that checking in with yourself and checking in on how you're feeling is super important. At RoundGlass, we are very focused on providing a product, whether that be content or practices that are evidence based. They can be mapped, they can be measured, and meditation has been known to alleviate a lot of tension and stress in the mind. But I know that there is proof for this, and I'd like David to really talk about the proof of meditation and mindfulness on making the brain more powerful.
Yeah, happy to. I think we all understand that we exist in a culture of attention deficit and distraction. And the neuroscience of meditation is demonstrating how meditation practice can transform the brain and optimize performance, not just in the workplace, but in every aspect of our lives. And in essence, there are really three brain networks that are most influenced through meditation practice. The first we refer to as the attention network. And the attention network simply supports the stability of sensory awareness and focus on the breath. The strengthening of this network really, through the practice of meditation, just decreases our tendency for distraction. So that's the first network. The second network involved in meditation we refer to as the default mode network. And this network supports mind wandering and self-reflective thinking, also goal-directed processing as well. But it's referred to as our default mode network because research has demonstrated that mind wandering is our default state when we're not engaged in any other task. So meditation decreases activity in this network. There's actually one famous study that's published in the prestigious Journal of Science in 2010 that found that people across all demographics spend about 47% of their lives in this default mind-wandering state. And that no matter what they were doing, that they were found to be mind-wandering, and it was actually causally linked to their unhappiness. So alterations in this network have been notorious for being associated with emotion dysregulation and psychopathology like depression and anxiety and even cardiovascular disease. The third network is what we refer to as the meta-awareness network. Really, this is the most advanced network of human functioning. It supports the floodlight of attention and awareness to all sensations, thoughts, and emotions as they arise moment to moment. And simply put, meta-awareness translates to being aware of what is happening in our minds at any moment. It is the critical function of mindfulness. As we just had a moment together, as Becky led us through a little short meditation, it allows us to be aware of all the different sensations, thoughts, and feelings that arise moment to moment. This network also supports the ability to flexibly switch between our internal thought processing that's supported by that default state, the external sensory processing of the world around us, and the goal-directed behaviors that we are constantly needing to keep track of. So it's really the juggler of the mind. And it's that network that promotes this healthy psychological distance between you and your thoughts and feelings and sensations. It is the network that is most strengthened through the meditation practice itself and prevents the atrophy of other parts of the brains responsible for age-related cognitive decline. So between these three networks and the interactions between these three networks, you're going to see how meditation really changes and transforms the brain to optimize your performance.
But that's amazing, David. That was a real education even for me. I loved how you explained it. That was really easy for people to gather. I suppose what we're focused on in meditation and mindfulness is really increasing our meta awareness, and the practice leads to being in that state more and more. And so therefore, people get to practice and build their repertoire of how do you stay there. I know that there's brain training that gets measured, and I think that that's what you were measuring to see how much brain training happens with meditation that can actually increase the state of one being in meta awareness. So that's really exciting, and
Indeed.
I think that I think that if we were to build this as we move forward through meditation, I mean, and then different practices, I think people can be better leaders. Rebecca, I'd like you to add a bit to this aspect. I know that you have been working a lot with the youth as well, and I know that David talked about the attention deficit. And I'm wondering, in your practice and in your teachings with the youth, how can we translate that for the workforce as well, and for the workplace with adults?
Sure, yeah. So I think really that attention piece, and really what also ties into that is the intention as well, right? Like, so what is our intention in our interactions? And to have a really solid intention to truly listen to what the other person is saying, how important that is in the workplace, for sure, for mindful communication. And I was just thinking of an example myself of interacting with my kids one time when I caught myself getting, well, I actually caught one of my daughters lying, and I felt myself getting like heated, and I felt myself, you just have those reactions that are just starting to take over, and I wanted to really make sure that she heard what I had to say. And my other daughter interrupted me, and she said, "Mom, you don't even look like yourself right now." And that just it snapped me out of it a little bit. And I think creating that separation is really what meditation helps teach us to do. And then from that place of separation, we are able to choose. And in that moment, I was able to see that I really had to let go of my agenda in that moment. And I think that's kind of sometimes an important strategy to really be a good mindful listener, which is really important for mindful leadership.
That's, your example hits home for me. And Mashan, who is also with us, she's seen how I react to my children and often says, "Hello." Take a breath, right? And it's important because even at the workplace, I mean, when you're dealing and you're juggling so many things, it often doesn't allow us time to separate our intention, our actions, and our reactions. And I think the audience really wants to know how, when you're getting triggered by these kind of by these external, extrinsic factors, how do you actually utilize the skill of meditation and mindfulness to be able to develop a distance, as you mentioned? How do you actually utilize the lessons in practice?
I was going to just say the first thing I would say is to remember that we are human is the first thing to remember, that we are going to make mistakes and we are going to occasionally not be happy with how we react, even if we're practicing meditating every single day. But then can we learn and grow from those experiences? But to create that separation, just like the practice we did at the beginning, connecting to the ground, connecting to your feet, taking a deep breath, and practice letting go. And we practice that over and over and over again every day, that it does become more second nature.
Thank you. I know, David, you're working with companies, even with through RoundGlass, with the companies that we're dealing with, and you're building these beautiful programs of empowering people sort of engage with their teams to build this kind of reservoir of knowledge and practice. And I'd really like you to shed light on how other companies and leaders of companies can work not only on themselves, but also spread this knowledge and awareness and help other people engage with this at the workplace.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. You know, one of the more critical skills in the workplace is really effective decision making and problem solving, right? As I alluded to earlier, mindfulness practice is thought to enhance what we can think of as self-awareness, right? Insight into our own mental habits and self-regulation. So we're becoming more aware and less impulsive in response to our own thoughts, feelings, sensations, right? So this translates directly to successfully navigating all the emotional triggers, all those negatively oriented thoughts, or difficult workplace relations, right? And we navigate those with calm, composure, and insight. That really translates to the improved executive control of our goal-driven behaviors. And not only that, but it also leads to more insight into others. Empathic skills are developed. And these pro-social skills builds people awareness and into what other people may be thinking. And that really enhances not only decision-making and problem solving, but allows one to have more trust in our teams, enhancing social connections, self-confidence, listening skills. They're all shown to improve through this empowerment that we get through meta-awareness. Just having awareness allows us to get more insight into our own mental habits and people awareness. So the pro-social types of experiences. And that all translates into the workplace.
Wow, who wouldn't want to be that kind of leader? I mean, I'm still on a journey and exploring how to get there and be a little bit less impulsive and make sure I can listen better. And there's so many skills that I think even as a person who's a meditator, I need to develop. I mean, it's a practice. It doesn't happen immediately. And I think that that's something that people here, whoever is watching, listening, understands that this journey is a continuous journey. And we really need to work at it on a regular basis to grow. And I think that what you've described is a truly elegant leader, somebody that you would be able to look up to because they are at their center every single moment when they're working with people and leading people. And I think that kind of guide, mentor, or leader is such a beacon of light. And I know that, Rebecca, you say mindfulness makes us stronger and more engaged. And David has talked a little bit about that because it really extends the walls of your own personal repertoire to a wider audience. And I'd really like to hear from you how people can get stronger and more engaged through mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah, I think that question really addresses like a misconception with mindfulness, that a lot of times people think that mindfulness and meditation actually makes them weaker, because of the acceptance piece, right? Like, oh, you just accept it and it's just is what it is and there's nothing we could do about it. But it's really not like that. It's the fact that when you are able to really see things for what they are, then you're able to sometimes sit with the discomfort, maybe if you made a mistake, as opposed to like quickly shoving it under the rug and just moving on and, just trying to make peace with yourself so quickly. Like sometimes it involves sitting with discomfort, or sometimes involves sitting with difficult emotions, and having the capacity, like mindfulness really helps us build that capacity to sit with those difficulties. And that's really what I mean by the strength component there, that we have a bigger capacity to sit with the difficulties. And then we're able to process them a little bit more, as opposed to, again, shoving them under the rug. And that allows us to really grow from them.
Yeah, I mean, we utilize this in therapy as well, where we're actually getting people who come for therapy to really get into the discomfort to be able to heal. And this is a way, from what you're describing, where people can do this on their own, just by being a little, just by taking a back seat, calming themselves down and allowing the emotions to rise up and ride them, basically. I think that this is important because all of us deal with external factors and even internal factors that shift us. So I think building that strength, and you're right, people do think, I've heard it myself, that, oh, if you're into well-being, then how come this happens, and then how come that happens? And there's so much judgment, not only for the people around you who are looking at you as a practitioner, but also you with yourself. And your statement, which you've made 3 times about we're human, goes to the fact that you're a work in progress. And I think that that's important. And we have somebody who's typed in a question. Anita has asked us, how does mindfulness impact people around me? No, sorry, let me read that again. Does mindfulness have effects on people around me? For example, will my coworkers get the benefit of my practice, even if they don't practice themselves?
That's a great question. Can I take a stab at that? I think
100%.
it's so. Well, so I think, again, going back to Becky's point about being human and how meditation really allows us to be human. This is one, we can think of mindfulness and meditation now as an intervention. We use it a lot in the context of, not only the workplace, but in clinical care. And you see it as a tool for not only self-growth, but allowing yourself to have emotions without avoiding them, not suppressing them or pushing them away. If there's anger, if there's frustration, you're allowing them to manifest and observing them. But if there is an object of your anger, distraction, or frustration, rather than taking your anger or frustration out on that person or object, you are there's a subtle difference between being angry with someone and being angry with the behavior. And there's a great conversation actually with the Dalai Lama and Paul Ekman, a motion scientist, who talks about this as anger could be actually constructive, right? Where you can actually say, no, I'm not happy with your behavior, and have compassion still for the actor, for the person themselves. So in those situations, not only is your behavior changing in a more pro-social manner, but you're also able to vocalize how you feel. So there's a real benefit to doing that. And I'll also just say that when you begin practice, you start just because we all want to decrease a little bit of our stress. We want to improve our attention and our and optimize performance, right? These are the things we want for ourselves. But as you continue to practice, what I find and what the research shows, and Becky, please also chime in here if you have more to say about it. But the idea is that it becomes more altruistic in our motivations and our intentions. We start to realize that as we gain awareness of ourselves, then we start to gain awareness of others, and just being in awareness has an effect on the people around us. So in answer to Anita's question is, indeed, you'll see it's completely infectious, this state of awareness where there's feelings of just acceptance of all other people's experiences. That helps build trust, that helps build pro-sociality and more connection in teams.
Thank you. Rebecca, would you like to add to that?
I'll just briefly say that I think, it really changes our relationship with ourselves, and therefore it's going to change our relationship with others.
Well, thank you. And David, I love that statement. I mean, this is a fact that, and we talk about this a lot, even at RoundGlass. But one of the things that I've learned through my education in the space of mental health is attack the problem, not the person. And I think that, you mentioning that and the fact that you can get that awareness through mindfulness and meditation is very important, especially in the workplace, because it really is distances us from the reaction that we would innately have to ensuring a more positive reaction for a more positive outcome. And I think that when people start to address the problem versus the person, because they've taken that step back to really identify what part of the issue they want to deal with, I think that helps with a solution which is more focused and more positive. Rebecca, I don't know if you know, but I have 3 kids and I'm juggling a lot in life. And when I think about meditation and mindfulness, and the days where I'm like, do I even have time for this? Right? Do I have time? Do I have time to take a minute for myself? I've always, actually yesterday I was complaining about this, saying, I don't have time for myself, right? And meditation and mindfulness needs me to have even that 1 minute that you gave us. And I don't remember ever thinking that, okay, it'll only take me a minute. I feel like it's going to take me a little bit longer. And I want to break that myth as well, because it doesn't really have to take you longer. And I want to make sure that, you can help all of us understand how do we prepare ourselves to be mindful and to create those moments of mindfulness wherever we can find them.
Yeah, I heard this concept recently about time confetti, which I just love this term. First of all, this idea that a long time ago, we used to have blocks of time, chunks of time where you could, work hard all day and then relax at the end of the day. And we know that, especially with remote working, it's not like that anymore. And instead, our free time is like time confetti, just these little tiny sprinkles of drops of free time sprinkled throughout the day. And I think for me, I really try to take advantage of those little drops of time with intention. So for example, like if I have 3 minutes before a meeting, I'll stretch and move and take a deep breath. And if I have maybe 15 minutes in between, maybe that'll be a longer practice, maybe getting outside or something. But I think it's really just taking advantage of those natural little breaks and not getting caught back into something. And then another important place to me is like the bookends of the day, right? Like how we start the day and how we end the day. To me, the ending the day is sacred. I have my nighttime routine, which involves meditating, stretching, journaling, and reading. And I'm really diligent about those. The morning routine, when I start off the morning routine with some yoga, I feel great. If I get outside, I feel great. I can't say that I do that every day. So when I don't, I try not to should on myself, say like, oh, you should have done that. I try not to do that, even though I know that I do have a better day when I start that way. So again, it always comes back down to being kind to ourselves, but also like having kindness with a balance of accountability. I've actually worked with a researcher who created this compassionate accountability model, which is about having this balance between compassion and accountability for behaviors like this.
Well, thank you. I want to emphasize that, because I know that everybody here are leading their own companies and obviously very much personality A type. And if we give ourselves a commitment and we don't fulfill it, we badger ourselves. And I know that you've said be compassionate about yourself, and now you're talking about compassionate accountability. And these are things that we really have to I know what I do to myself. If I say, okay, I got to walk the dogs in the morning at this time and I got to walk them in the afternoon at this time, and I don't do it, and I'm unable to kind of maximize my schedule to be able to intercept it with the things that I have promised to myself, I am pretty hard on myself. And I know that, you were talking about this accountability, being compassionate. I really want both of you to emphasize, not apart from just the words, really, how do we break away from our own critique? And I know that we're talking about breath work and mindfulness, but it's almost like I know all the words. Everybody here probably knows all the words, but I need that tip, those hooks that we actually utilize to build this kind of acceptability of ourselves internally.
Yeah, it's a powerful sort of way to think about it. I'll just say one thing about how we regulate our emotion and how mindfulness helps us regulate emotion that may help others as that hook to sort of really get into the benefits, which I think of it as equanimity, for example, is one of the best concepts for understanding how mindfulness can really help us regulate our emotions. And it's not about, like I said before, suppressing or avoiding the things that come up. It's about recovery. And the idea is how fast or how quickly can you recover from a stressor? We're all going to have stressors throughout our days. We can't avoid those, right? So how quickly can we recover and feel grounded and stable again? That's the key, not only to, I think, how mindfulness practice can benefit us all, but how a mindfulness practice can also protect ourselves, our physical health, our emotional health. Our entire holistic well-being depends on how quickly we can recover, because inflammation and physical detriments due to stress can all manifest when we don't recover quickly and efficiently. So I'll just say that equanimity is probably one of those hooks that allows us to step back from that judgment, step back from the stressors that are sort of affecting us and making us physically and mentally challenged. So I'm just going to end with that as being one of, I think, the key hooks that maybe you're looking for and maybe that everyone can benefit from, is use that breath, use that sort of moment, and it takes one mindful breath, that one pause, to just take a step back and observe, is this helpful for me or not? And that develops the equanimity, or strengthens those brain networks that we talked about that can enhance our physical and mental health.
Well, thank you. We have a couple of questions. Rebecca, just moving forward from that question, the next one was, how does mindfulness help with my fatigue? If you can just shed light on that.
Sure. So I actually did a research study, a meta-analysis that combined all the research studies that have ever been done on yoga and meditation for concussion, and looked at the different symptoms that were benefited from that. And fatigue was one of them. So the reason why fatigue could be helped is a lot of it, I think, has to do with especially if you have chronic fatigue, it's a lot about managing that and managing the envelope of how far you could push yourself each day, like enough that you're pushing yourself to move and get up and get out of bed, but not pushing yourself so far that you exceed that envelope for that day. Because if you go beyond that envelope the next day, if it's chronic fatigue, then a lot of time there's a big struggle with going beyond that envelope and then having a rebound and being just so utterly exhausted. So mindfulness gives us that ability to really see and ask ourselves and check in with our bodies, and also be, again, kind to ourselves when it's like, you know what, I'm just tired. That's beyond my envelope today, and really respecting that. So it really helps us navigate the fatigue.
Thank you. Another thing that RoundGlass does really well is works with companies big and small to actually bring in holistic well-being practices. And we have somebody from the chat who's highlighted a question where it said that, they're a small business owner, and how can they successfully introduce mindfulness to skeptical employees? David, can you start with that?
Yeah, sure. I'd happy to jump in there. I really do think, and just from my own interactions with companies and different organizations, different non-for-profit and for-profit places who try to incorporate mindfulness into the workplace, or even in education and in healthcare, all the same issues. It's never usually enough to just encourage people to go sit and meditate for an hour outside of work time, once a week or even once a day. It has to be built into the culture of the workplace. The culture of the institution has to change. That means that the leadership has to be supportive of it and provide at least some time for not only self-care throughout the day, but for real holistic well-being practices to be used and implemented in the culture of the workplace. So in meetings, there can be a small pause for meditation. There can be times during the day where you just take a mindful break or a little stretch or yoga break. And we do this from RoundGlass. We have experts that come into workplace environments, and they'll do a small mindful exercise or something that can really energize people and who are feeling low in energy. But that's what it really takes, I think, from my perspective, is really changing the culture of the workplace from the leadership on down. It trickles down, and everybody usually finds that it's not only helpful for their own sanity in the context of all the stresses, but then also in terms of teamwork and how everyone starts to work together more efficiently and feels more purpose and meaning in what they're doing together.
Well, thank you. I know that I've dealt with many people who are skeptics, and one of the things that we do really well is actually showcase the evidence of what mindfulness and meditation does. And David and Rebecca both work on that. And a lot of the times that you need to actually showcase this, you can show somebody by using the heart rate variability scale. You've got your neurofeedback or EEG biofeedback that can map the way, or at least showcase to you how the brain is functioning. And with a short meditation, the change in the way your brain copes and just with your breath is showcased on your gadget, whatever gadget it is that you use. And this has often been, when I do some workshops, this has often been like the turning point where people realize, oh my God, there's actually proof. And it doesn't take years and years of practice to showcase that. And I think a workshop with your employees to have them see the benefits right in front of them, I think that really would help, because nothing better than proof in front of your eyes. Rebecca, how can mindfulness help to cope with change in the workplace? It's hard when things don't feel in our control at times. This is from somebody in the audience.
Yeah, I feel like that's really speaking to a sense of overwhelm too, that tends to happen when things are changing directions a lot of times, and you just feel really overwhelmed. I know I feel that way sometimes, and then sometimes like just the next ask feels like a mountain, in a struggle. And then I'm always so surprised at how after a meditation session, the same type of ask is like, oh, that's easy. It just all seems a little bit easier, because you're coming from a place of more balance. Usually it has to be a little bit of a longer session to be able to make those adjustments for me personally, actually. But yeah.
I think something that you really spoke to, Rebecca, is find that time at the bookends of your day. I think that's important to reprogram, reassess, rejig, recalibrate in a sense to get to that point. I know that when I'm dealing with something stressful and it's bothering me, I usually do take the night after my kids have gone to sleep to really just allow myself, and I question. I do really introspective questioning around, why am I feeling like this, and what part of this is here to teach me the lesson, and what lesson is that? And then I just allow my breath to take over, and I let go, and it really works. extremely well with me, and hopefully practices like that can be, I mean, we'll be talking about a lot of practices over our 12 sessions, and hopefully we'll build your playbook of practices to help you deal with that. The next question that's in is, we are in a disconnected work environment. What tools do you recommend to build team mindfulness when we're in a Zoom world? I mean, we did that here right in the beginning with our 1 minute meditation, but I'd really like it if you have something else to add to that. Rebecca, you can go first.
Yeah, I would love
David.
to just add, because I have, worked with companies that maybe are not so comfortable with doing a meditation right at the start. Like maybe it just feels, they're worried about how their employees are going to take it. Or, and I used to start my classes that I would teach with a just brief meditation. And the class had nothing to do with that, but the students just loved it. And then they would thank me for it. And I think maybe it could be the same thing, that just trying it. And maybe even using, like, we have these new 3-minute meditations that are just so perfect for that. Just, if nobody knows how to lead it, to just play one of those as a group, like that could be an opportunity. And if that doesn't feel comfortable, then another idea too is to just do a check-in at the beginning. But one thing that I think is important with a check-in is that it's really honoring people to share whatever's on their mind. Really in that ownership of maybe it's an exciting news, and maybe it's not so exciting. Maybe it's a hardship that they're going through, but really giving it as a safe space for people to share whatever it is that they're ready to share.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think that's spot on. I would only say listening skills, mindful listening in terms of mindful and compassionate communications, which you see often in the curriculum for mindfulness in the workplace, is learning how to listen, learning how to communicate in that mindful way, just sharing in that moment. And that has been shown to not only enhance the social connections, but empowers others through allowing them to sharing in the mission and the vision. So there's purpose and meaning that's shared amongst team members. And so I do advocate not only for the mini meditations, which I think are a fantastic way to settle the mind while we're all stressed, and finding that sort of space to, basically reset before a meeting, but to then have the chance to listen and share and listen, and that exchange can be quite powerful.
I think when one of our other conversations that we've been having, we really talked about increasing the awareness, your level of awareness with mindfulness and meditation, and how it really extends that. David, talking about advocating for evidence-based work and really getting this conversation back to the science. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the science of meditation and how it works?
Yeah, so I could summarize really of how, I spoke about the 3 networks of how the brain is transformed through the practice of meditation, and how those networks are engaged in particular ways. And so just to summarize the mechanisms by which we understand how science, how meditation works and how it impacts our mind, brain, and body, is number one is that it improves, it transforms our intention and motivation. We've talked a lot about intention today. So really setting growth-oriented and altruistic goals for purpose and meaning is how meditation starts to transform our intentions and motivations. And that's going to lead to improved benefits, both in terms of performance and for health benefits as well. Number 2 is attention regulation. So I think, as we've been alluding to, we're in this culture of distraction and attention deficits. Meditation specifically enhances attention stability, the flexibility to switch between a focus of our concentration to more open awareness, to be more aware of what's happening in our bodies as we start to have emotions and different experiences. And then the meta-awareness skill, which is to be aware of where our mind is at any moment, to be more discerning of our experiences. Third is emotion regulation. So we've talked a lot about how we can control our impulses to act, sort of take a moment, stop, observe what's happening, and be a little bit more wise in how we respond. This leads also to what we refer to as equanimity. So we can have a full emotional experience that could even be negative. Something could be angry or some frustration. That's normal, that we're being human. But it's the mechanism by which mindfulness really improves our mental and physical health comes down to this idea of equanimity. So we're regulating our emotion by recovering faster. That's a huge part of healthy emotion regulation skills. The next mechanism by which we think meditation works is extinction and reconsolidation. And what that really means is that we're just seeing how the brain is learning to change our mental habits and improve how they respond in more adaptive ways. That's just real change. And the brain changes that we see in meditators is supporting that kind of change. The next mechanism is prosociality. So we've talked a lot about how do we get our teams to work together and adopt these types of practices. Well, by doing the practices, not only you're helping for yourself, but you are increasing connection and empathy with others. There are explicit practices that we can do that enhance love and kindness for ourselves and for the people in our teams. And that specifically will help improve pro-social or social dynamics and team functioning. And lastly, the last mechanism by which we think meditation works and where the evidence really lies is sensory clarity. We're embodying our experience more rather than thinking about what we need to do, which is, often very beneficial. We're being more present in our bodies, experiencing the world through our bodies much more. And that's what we call embodied, without the interpretation, without the judgment that Prakriti was referring to, that we're always stuck in our heads in trying to evaluate, did I do this right? Am I going to say the right thing? What's going to happen in the future? All of that takes up a lot of mental bandwidth, so to speak, and that consumes energy. So if we're consuming energy in our brains, it's going to make us fatigued. So to be more efficient, we really want to try to be more embodied, be more present, and that sensory clarity with what's happening will help us respond more efficiently. So those are really the 6 mechanisms by which we think meditation is working to affect brain and mind and body health.
Well, thank you, David. I think those 6 points were really very well placed. And I hope that all of you took a photo of that or a screenshot so you have that with you. We have this on demand, so you can obviously come back and pause it and really have a read, because I think it's important to have that at your fingertips to see what are the benefits. Additionally, I really do believe that, if you do a quick check on how many times you picked up your phone during this session that we had, or you checked your own messages, you'd know that this will benefit you, even if it's a slight adjustment that we need to make. So throughout this workplace wellbeing series, the subject of mindfulness and its benefits will be an ongoing conversation. This is just the start. We just kind of have given you a snapshot, but we're going to go deeper as we move forward. And we're really excited to support your efforts to create a healthy and thriving workplace. A special thanks to Dr. David Vago and Dr. Rebecca Acabchuk for being here. This conversation was extremely well put together. I'm super excited, and I hope everybody in the audience has learned a lot about this. Our next session will be on burnout and what that means and how we build our internal resilience. I'd like you all to stay connected with us and our community at RoundGlass, or on our app, which I highly urge you to download, because we do have practical meditations and mini meditations that can help you in your everyday journey. So if you feel like you don't have an hour, half an hour, or even 20 minutes, you have 3 minutes and 1 minute meditations available at your fingertips. Thank you. Until next time, work and live mindfully. Goodbye. And once again, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.